guys, it's Will with First Watch, first ever solo episode of First Watch. I feel kind of naked and alone up here. Today I'm going to be talking about Climax. This is a show that is part review, part reaction if you're unfamiliar. So we watch movies and then we talk about them, and it's not really like a proper review. It's not really like an exact reaction. It's kind of in between the two. So what is Climax? Climax was directed by Gaspar Noe, and it debuted at the Cannes Film Festival in 2018. And it was very well reviewed, which kind of surprised a lot of people because he has a big fan base, if you're unfamiliar with Gaspar Noe. But outside of that, his movies are not particularly well liked and not particularly well received. And part of that, which I'll talk about in a second here, is that part of the reason for that is that he makes very extreme movies. And not necessarily like extreme violence, but just very extreme movies in terms of the experience of sitting down and watching these movies. So this movie is about... and it's distributed by A24, I should say. So it debuted at the Cannes Film Festival in 2018, but then it was released in the US in 2019 through A24. And I saw this movie in theaters a few months ago, but it's now out on streaming. So we'll include a link in the description of the video where you can go and stream the movie if you're interested in seeing it. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about it a little bit. I really love this movie, and I really love Gaspar Noe, so I am of that section of fans who really love his stuff. Although I should add the caveat that what I really love is his kind of more psychedelic and sensual movies. So I saw him speak maybe like 2 years ago, and it was a really interesting event. They didn't show a movie. He brought in clips of movies he wanted to talk about, and what he was talking about specifically was the use of sound and music in movies. And so he talked for like 2 hours, and he showed these clips, and he talked about his own films, and he made a film that is extremely notorious. It's called Irreversible. It's a rape revenge movie, and it has like a 9-minute long rape scene that's extremely uncomfortable. But he also did stuff in that movie where he used subaudible sound. So if you don't know what that is, it's sound that you can't actually hear, but that makes you physically uncomfortable. So like there are like reports of people puking like during that movie because he's using this trick of using these really low rumbling sounds that are making you physically ill and then showing you horrific and disgusting and disturbing images. And that is not a movie that I can really sit through. But at the end of that movie, there's this strobing effect that happens that follows through into the credits that's almost like it's like very overwhelming and very bright. And he said in this event where I saw him speak that he added that at the end of that movie because his first few films are very, very violent and brutal and nihilistic, and he knew that he wanted to move into a phase of making more experimental psychedelic films, almost like pure cinema, and films that are grounded in the sensory experience of the viewer more than they are in the machinations of the plots and the characters and stuff like that. Those are the movies that I really love. So Enter the Void, Love, and now Climax are those three films, and I love those movies. So Climax is it takes place in the mid-90s, and it's about this group of dancers who have been assembled by a central figure who's played by Sofia Boutella, she was in like the Tom Cruise Mummy movie. She played the mummy. She's in Kingsman. She plays the woman who has like metal legs. She's in Atomic Blonde. I haven't seen that movie, so I don't know who she plays in that movie, but she's like a dancer who started acting, and Jim is telling me who she played in that movie from behind the camera using hand signals. So she's very athletic, and she's very it's very easy. She's the kind of person who's very easy to train in like fighting martial arts and stuff like that because she's a dancer, right? And Van Damme famously said the hardest thing he ever did in his life was doing dancing and ballet and that kind of stuff as a martial artist. Like it really pushes you to the extremes of the physical condition. So she's a very physical actor. And so she plays the main character in this movie, and she's a choreographer and a dancer who has assembled this big group of dancers to go on a tour of the United States. So what the movie is it's their final rehearsal. So it opens with a single take crane shot of this dance sequence that's just fucking like phenomenal. And the dance sequence is over, and they're like, yeah, we did it, successful rehearsal, let's have a party. And so there's a bowl of punch, and someone puts acid in the punch, and no one's expecting to do acid, and so they all have these trips, but because they're not expecting to be tripping, they have really bad trips, and it becomes like the second half of the movie becomes this like hellscape of basically like descending into like a living nightmare. And the way that the movie is shot and the way that the sound is done evokes that sense of like descending into hell. So this is a very extreme movie from like a sensory perspective. It's not that violent. Like there are some acts of violence, but it's very disturbing because it forces you into this like weird headspace where you're not really sure exactly what's happening and what isn't happening, and like the camera gets more and more, the lens gets like wider and wider and more focused on like minute details, and the lights become like redder and redder as it goes on, to the point that it's so disorienting you can't even tell what you're looking at, and the camera's like flipped upside down at some point, and the second half of the movie is made to look like one 43-minute single take. Like I'm not sure that it is, but it's just like really overwhelming, but it's a very unique experience, and I really loved being able to see it in the theater on a giant screen with really loud sound. There's a big French flag in the background of the movie, and so you could read a lot of stuff into this movie because the characters are of every race, and they're of, there's genderqueer people, there's gay characters, there's bi characters, and there's characters who are French African, there's characters who are Arab African, and they're all thrust into one place, and they're stuck there, and they're given these drugs that open up different parts of their mind, and knowing that the backdrop is, and Gaspar Noe said in interviews, the backdrop of the French flag was kind of an accident. They had all this cloth lying around, and he's like, hey, that looks like the French flag, let's stick it up there. But it really informs the movie, and it seems like this is a movie where you can read a lot into race relations and immigration and like all these things happening, and these people trapped in, what could be conceived as like a metaphor for France. So I guess I stop talking now. Like, if you can deal with extreme movies, and if you're interested in this type of thing, this is a really, really fantastic movie. If you're interested in pure cinema, if you like stuff like Kenneth Anger, Alejandro Jodorowsky, like that kind of stuff, I think you will really, really, really dig this movie. If you're interested in like plot-motivated movies, character-driven movies, movies that don't make you feel really uncomfortable, you probably won't like this movie. I mean, it's heavily influenced by a lot of horror movies, like Possession, if you're familiar with that film from like 80 or 81 with Sam Neill in it, and like other kind of movies like that. So it's very extreme, but it's called Climax. It was distributed by A24. It is now on streaming platforms. My name is Will. This has been First Watch. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again in the future.